first I better warm up with a lesson from the Hong Kong School of Kung Phooey.
Fan-rific. In the fall of 1974, Saturday mornings were ruled by one hero, the #1 super guy Hong Kong Phooey. Voiced by the legendary Scatman Crothers, the show was a massive hit, blending a parody of martial arts with a bumbling canine hero who, against all odds, always saved the day. But here's the real mystery. Despite its huge popularity, the series vanished after just one season. The show premiered on September 7th, 1974, and its last new episode aired on December 21st, 1974. After only 16 half-hour episodes, it was gone. So, what happened? Why would a show this beloved disappear so quickly? Now, this wasn't a simple case of bad ratings. The story is way more complex, tangled up in production formulas, cultural shifts, and the strange business of 1970s television. This is the rise and fall of Hong Kong Phooey. Now, to understand Hong Kong Phooey's meteoric rise, you have to get the world he chopped his way into. The mid-1970s were in the middle of a full-blown martial arts craze. Bruce Lee had become a global icon with films like Enter the Dragon in 1973, and the TV series Kung Fu had made the stoic martial arts master a household name. And suddenly, every kid in every neighborhood was doing karate jobs in the air. Now, this cultural moment was the perfect opening for Hanna Barbera, the undisputed kings of Saturday morning cartoons. So, the studio was a hit factory, pumping out everything from the Flintstones to Scooby-Doo, and they knew a trend when they saw one. They needed a character that could tap into the kung fu fad but give it their signature comedic twist. And early on, the series even went by the name Kung Phooey, and the studio apparently considered casting Huckleberry Hound in the lead role before creating an original character.
Uh-oh, sounds like he needs some help from Hong Kong Phooey, whoever he is.
They were spoofing the popular detective shows of the time, but with the high-kicking energy of martial arts. The result was a concept that was both timely and perfectly suited for their brand of animation. A hero who was the complete opposite of serious, hyper-competent figures like Bruce Lee. They needed a clumsy, well-meaning oaf. They needed Penrod Penry Pooch. Now, the premise was simple and brilliant. By day, Penry Pooch was the mild-mannered janitor at the local police station, constantly annoying the gruff Sergeant Flint. But whenever the dispatcher, Rosemary, called for help, Penry would dive into a rickety old filing cabinet and, after usually getting stuck, emerge as the crime-fighting canine Hong Kong Phooey.
Amazing how that works every time.
Now, a huge part of the character's genius was his voice. In an inspired move, Hanna Barbera cast Scatman Crothers, a beloved jazz musician and actor. Crothers gave Phooey a warm, comically confident voice that was instantly recognizable. In a 1986 interview, executive producer Joseph Barbera recalled that he was concerned the network wouldn't approve of a black man voicing the Asian-themed hero. So he played 5 blind auditions for the executives. They overwhelmingly chose Crothers' take, only learning his identity after they'd already fallen in love with the performance. Phooey wasn't just a funny voice, though. The whole show was built around his utter incompetence. He fought crime by clumsily consulting his trusty The Hong Kong Book of Kung Fu. But the real hero was never Phooey himself. It was his striped cat sidekick, Spot, who would silently and brilliantly solve every case, setting things up so his master would accidentally save the day and get all the credit. Joined by the Phooey-mobile, a car that could transform into whatever the plot required, the duo became an unconventional but unstoppable crime-fighting team. Now, when Hong Kong Phooey premiered on ABC in September 1974, it was an instant hit with the kids. The catchy theme song, sung by Scatman Crothers himself, was an earworm that announced the arrival of Saturday morning's newest superstar. The show's formula was repetitive, but for its young audience, that was part of the charm.
Don't like you wandering off like that, Spot. Might need you sometime.
Every episode delivered the same reliable gags. You knew Penry would get stuck in the filing cabinet. You knew he'd misread his Kung Fu manual, and you knew that Spot would ingeniously save the day at the last second, leaving Phooey to declare, "Well, that was a fan-rific Phooey finish." The public adored him. In one episode, after he drives the Phooey-mobile through wet cement, the construction workers call it an honor to have their work ruined by the great Hong Kong Phooey. Now, for a few months in 1974, Hong Kong Phooey was a pop culture icon, leading to a comic book series and tons of merchandise. He was the #1 super guy every kid wanted to be. The show felt like a Saturday morning institution in the making, which makes its sudden end so baffling. So if the show was a rating success, why did it end? Well, the first clue is in the premise itself. The main joke, that Phooey is a buffoon and his cat does all the work, is brilliant, but it's a single joke. The formula that made the show so reliable also made it incredibly rigid. Each of the 31 story segments followed the exact same structure. How long can a show built on one running gag really last? But the main reason for the show's short run wasn't creative burnout. It was the unglamorous reality of the Hanna Barbera production model. The studio was an animation factory, churning out multiple new shows every year. And in the 1970s, it wasn't unusual for even a successful show to have a short one-season run before being sold into syndication. The model was to create a batch of episodes, in this case 16 half hours, and then let them run in repeats for years. Hong Kong Phooey wasn't cancelled in the modern sense. It simply finished its production order, and the studio moved on. The fall of Hong Kong Phooey wasn't a dramatic collapse, but a quiet, calculated business decision. There's another, more complicated layer to the legacy of Hong Kong Phooey. While it was a parody, the show relied on cultural stereotypes that drew criticism even at the time. The hero's name, the gong sound effect, his pagoda-shaped car, and his reliance on a mystical book were all broad caricatures of Asian culture.
I gotta see what my Hong Kong Book of Kung Fu says about stuffing stolen swordfish.
These elements likely weren't created with malice, but they are products of a less culturally aware time and haven't aged well. The show's setting in a crime-ridden, unnamed city also tapped into the anxieties of 1970s America. Some critics have since pointed out that the name of Phooey's alter ego, Penry Pooch, sounds a lot like penury, meaning extreme poverty. Voiced by a prominent black actor, the character existed as a strange intersection of cultural signifiers, making his legacy far more complex than just a silly cartoon. The show's original run ended with the episode Comedy Cowboys, and this final installment was actually a backdoor pilot, a common TV practice where an episode is used to test out new characters for a potential spin-off. In the story, Phooey is framed for a crime, and a new heroic trio called the Posse Impossible arrives to clear his name. Those characters were later spun off into their own segment on another Hanna Barbera show, the CB Bears.
Did I hurt you? And what's your name?
It's Big Duke.
But even though his own show was over, Hong Kong Phooey was far from gone. His 16 episodes ran in repeats on ABC until 1976, and later found new life on NBC and the USA Network, which is why the show feels like it was on for much longer than it was. He also became a Hanna Barbera all-star. In 1977, Scatman Crothers returned to voice the character for the crossover series Laugh Olympics, where Hong Kong Phooey was a key member of the Scooby-Doobies team. He also appeared in a 2017 reboot of Wacky Races, reimagined as a genuinely skilled martial artist. The strangest chapter in his legacy, though, might be the movie that never was. In the mid-2000s, a live-action CGI hybrid film was in development, set to star Eddie Murphy as the voice of Phooey. Test footage was eventually leaked online around 2012, showing a CGI Phooey cracking jokes in a live-action world. But the project quietly fell apart, leaving behind only a bizarre what-if for fans. So, the rise and fall of Hong Kong Phooey wasn't really a fall at all, but more of a sudden stop. It was a massive hit born from a perfect storm, the 70s kung fu craze and Hanna-Barbera's hit-making formula. Its disappearance after one season wasn't a failure, but standard practice for the cartoon production line of the era. Hong Kong Phooey may have only had a brief moment in the spotlight, but he proved that even a #1 super guy with a short run could leave a fan-rific and very strange legacy that lasts a lifetime.